Remember, today we are debating this big question today that is, should traditional attire be reserved only for those who live by traditional customs? And as I mentioned earlier on, we have Thabo Maketa, who's a cultural ambassador and fashion designer from Lesotho based in Cape Town. We have Akafo Akezia, who is joining us from Nigeria, a cultural education activist or advocate rather. Akafo, let's start with you, man. What do you think about this question? What's your take on it? Akafo, can you hear me? Okay, I don't know if Akafo can hear me. Let me start with you, Thabo. Are you there?
Okay. I am here. Yes, I can hear you.
All right, Thabo, let's start with you as we try sort out the line with Akafo. What side do you actually stand with this one? How do you answer this particular question that we've asked for our debate today? Should traditional attire be reserved only for those who live by traditional customs?
So my answer to that is definitely no. I don't even see in the day and age that we're in how that is even possible. And I speak from obviously the perspective coming from South Africa, coming from a country that we recognize 11 nationalities and cultural groups in this country. I myself am married to a Xhosa man. So when one talks about should one only wear attire from where you come from, and on top of that, only if you're practicing your culture, I think that really minimizes the reach that heritage and culture gets to have, and it kind of puts it in a box. It kind of almost says that it is reserved. It's a museum artifact, if you will. If people are going to approach culture in that respect of saying it can only be used for traditional practices. So I myself, I've taken the Basotho blankets. The blankets are very well known for their warmth, their wool blankets that the Basotho people wear. Then I took that blanket and translated it to garments, to scarves, and to capes. So for me, I've always spoken about love culture and share culture. And I can tell you, when I first took those blankets and cut them, the response that came back from what I would call the traditionalists of the Basotho culture, for them, they viewed it as disrespectful. They viewed it as, you're not taking our heritage and our culture seriously. But for me, it was being able to take those garments and then now go overseas, now get to showcase them all the way back in 2013 in Vancouver, where then now people are talking about this little country called Lesotho, the Mountain Kingdom. We get to see the garments now translated in movies like Black Panther. So without us being able to take clothing and translating clothing and saying, hey guys, look at my story, appreciate the story, it is now translatable when someone can look at it in this manner and this way through garments. Then I can tell you more about where I come from and about my people. If I can't tell you my story about where I come from, then we will end up being a dying group of people because no one will know about us, if you understand what I'm saying. So for me, definitely, I completely disagree with the concept that only people practicing traditional culture should be wearing traditional clothing. I think it should be allowed for people from the culture, as well as those who understand the story and want to share the story from that culture.
Okafo, let's come to you. You answer this question for us, whether or not traditional attire should be reserved only for those who live by traditional customs. Where do you stand in this conversation?
Okay, thank you very much. Once again, my name is Okafo Okafo. Yes, should traditional attire be reserved for those who practice traditional customs? I'm of the opinion and of the view that yes, it should. The traditional attire should be reserved, totally reserved, for those who practice traditional customs. The reasons I have to justify my stand this morning is that cultural heritage is actually the backbone of every community and the foundation of our identity. The traditional clothing is a very vital part of every culture, and it offers a window into a society's history, values, and traditions. For you to tell better where you're from, who you are, and your identity, your values, your norms, and all that concerns you, I think the traditional attire speaks volume, or will definitely speaks volume about it. And I have some of these points. There's one number one I tagged, cultural significance. Traditional attire holds a very deep cultural symbolic meaning, and it's often tied to a very specific custom. To every tradition, there is actually a regalia they are known for. So it is tied to a specific custom, rituals, and values. Therefore, when we restrict or the restriction of its use to only those who practice the customs helps to preserve the authenticity and the significance of the culture. You can't just pick up anybody from anywhere to come and put on the Isiagu, for instance, in the eastern part of the country. You can't just pick up anybody from any part of the country to come just put on a traditional attire. The value will be lost. The authenticity and the significance of that particular culture and tradition is lost totally. There is also we call respect and sensitivity. Yes, limiting traditional attires to those who practice traditional customs shows respect for that culture. You can't, the way I am representing the good people of the eastern part of the country, you can't just expect me to put on an attire. There's no respect for it because I might bastardize that particular attire. I might not put it in the right form or in the right way. So there is respect and sensitivity for every culture. So we must show respect for the culture and avoid cultural appropriation and misrepresentation. If I put on a traditional attire for another culture, definitely misappropriation and misrepresentation comes in. Then finally, I have on my list community identity. Every traditional attire I tell you this morning is a visual representation of the community identity. Looking at me this morning, you need nobody to tell you that I'm from the eastern part of Nigeria. So your traditional attire often is always a visual representation of the community where you belong and the heritage where you're standing for. Therefore, restricting it helps the youth to maintain and restrain or retain the community's cultural heritage. So I am of the opinion this morning that traditional attire should be basically reserved for those who practice traditional customs. Thank you very much.
Akafo, that's very powerful in terms of how you put it there. And I want to take that back to you, Tabo, because it seems like what Okafo is saying is that, the integrity of the culture is dependent on its authenticity, right? What do you say to some of the multiple themes that were connected to that thought?
So I think first of all is the clarity between the clarity I want to define between people who wear traditional clothing must be only the people who participate in traditional customs, or we are saying it must be people from that culture. That's the first thing. Because if we're talking about traditional customs, for where I come from as a Mosotho, we are talking about specific rites of passage or specific rituals that happen. These are those things that also happen that form part of your identity and in terms of who you are and where you come from. So now, are we saying that if I am not participating in a cultural ritual at that time, I may not then take garments that represent my culture and my identity and walk into a corporate space that has a very white culture that's in there, a very un-African culture? Are we saying that I must leave those garments at the door, and then because I'm in a corporate space in Africa, then I must walk into that space wearing a German suit or a tailored European garment, because now I must represent that space that I'm in? Because now we're currently living in a space where we're saying we want to reclaim back our identity, but it's not now to say, okay, we're going to throw technology and innovation out of the window. So for me, I think, we need to clarify, number one, are you saying I can't wear the garments because I'm not of the people who wear the garments, or because I'm not practicing the cultural practices from that culture? Because then me as a woman as well, now you've thrown me in a whole separate box. Then I shouldn't even be sitting here on the computer in some cultural practices.
Yeah.
So that's why I want to twist the definition between, are we saying the people, if you're Mosotho, I must wear my blanket. If you're not Mosotho, don't wear the blanket. But if you're Mosotho and I'm not participating in a cultural event, am I now being limited to only wear my attire at those cultural events and those cultural happenings?
But I think your two-pronged response with those questions is a point in itself. And I think we're asking it in a very loose manner there, Tabo. And I think it's a good countering position for Okafor. Okafor, what's your take on that response? Because it's completely right. We've been so westernized in our way of dress that are you saying that I can't wear a dashiki if it's from Nigeria because, it's Nigerian and I can't take it to the office and mix it up maybe with something more authentically Western, maybe with a jean or something like that, and maybe remix it as an African. What are you saying to that? Because we are highly westernized to a point that we don't even wear our cultures as they are even in our contemporary society.
Okay, thank you very, very much. That was a very good question. Whether we like it or not, culture remains culture. Yes, culture remains culture. Because of westernization, because of what will I call it again? Maybe globalization and how everything has turned out to be in our current day, people now misuse the use of some of these our cultural attire. If you come to a work setting or a workplace, every workplace has its own codes and conducts. Every workplace has its own ways, kind of. If you come to Nigeria, in the eastern part of the Nigeria, even down to the schools, we have a particular day, every student comes with their cultural attire. And they emphasize, even down to the national anthem is being recited in their dialects. And exactly what we do in Mapando Language Hub, we teach children to identify their culture, stand by it, speak it, and they should be able to defend where they come from. So the traditional attire holds a very, very integral part as far as culture and traditions are concerned. In as much as westernization is coming or blending, I can just imagine putting on an isiagu and I'm putting on a jean. No, it doesn't go that way. And that is why the bastardization of this traditional attire comes in. And sometimes people of recent time has brought down so low this particular traditional attire. If you have an occasion to attend, you are from the west parts of the country, everyone should stick to use their own cultural attire. That's my take. Everyone should stick. I'm from the eastern part of the country. Whenever I'm having, where I work currently in Nigeria, there's a particular day set aside for traditional wears. And on that day, I come with my full regalia as somebody from the eastern part of the country. People from the west also come with their own ashoke, like the Yorubas. They come with their ashoke. The Hausas come with their own danshiki and buba and the rest of them. So everybody to their own culture. And when you see, it's always very, very beautiful. Good. So I'm of the opinion that you know the culture you are presenting, put on their traditional attire and rep your culture with your traditional attire.
Well, we have to leave it there. And let me wrap it up with you, Tabo. We've run out of time. But how do you want to wrap this one up? Because Okafor is saying, hey, we should just leave aside the sharing of these cultural experiences for particular days and respect each other's cultures and be maybe mindful of the more cultural meanings behind these attires. Just in 30 seconds, what's your feedback to that?
Sure, in 30 seconds, not enough time. Look, my children are currently half Xhosa and half Sesotho. So as soon as we say each must stick to their own, already the next generation, it throws them off course to actually identify them. Who do they identify as? What do they identify as? I think for myself, culture as well has a lot of, there's meanings and reasons behind why we dress the way they do and why we do the things we do.
Yeah.
And even the elders need to teach us what the meanings are. And even for me, when I educate my customers on wearing the garment, I want you to know why you're wearing it, what it represents, so you can share the stories, share the culture. And so I think, unfortunately, if we move ourselves into a space where we say, you from that space, you stick there,
Yeah.
we're leaving a very big gap for the next generation where they can get lost with their identity because we're going to go with that narrative.
We need to wrap it up there, Thabo. Thank you so much to both yourself, Thabo Makgeta and Okafor Okezie, who are coming in on this debate really, really hot, and we'd like you to compete it as well. Should traditional attire be reserved only for those who live by traditional customs?